If you turn ahead into the next chapter on page 49, we see another temporary autonomous zone, another far-out, weirdo, counterculture vibe that McCandless gets himself involved in. He's camping out past Oh My God Hot Springs. And if you turn the page onto page 50, Krakauer again does a great job describing the far-out scene there. The community was beyond the Fringe. A lot of us have never even been to the Fringe, and so I'm thinking, yeah, beyond the Fringe. That's pretty out there, right? A vision of post-apocalypse America. You know, Christian and non-Christian alike, many people believe that we're living in the end times. Okay, the Left Behind series, has y'all ever heard of that? It's a series of books that imagines what will happen after the rapture, post-apocalypse. You all heard of 2012? There was a movie that came out this summer. There's these odd predictions related to this thing called the Mayan calendar, that the world as we know it will transform or end in some epic way in 2012. I'm holding my breath. I hope they're wrong, kind of. I mean, I want the world to be better. Everybody wants the world to be better. I mean, things are kind of rough out there in the real world. Sure, we want the world to be better. But I lived through this thing in the 80s. It was called the harmonic convergence back in 1987. We thought all this stuff was going to happen, and people all went to Brazil and Mexico and out into their trees, and you know, it came and went, nothing happened. I remember Y2K. You know, I was fortified out on my farm in DeKalb County waiting for the end of the world, and I woke up on New Year's Day 2000, and I was like, guess I got to go back to work. So post-apocalypse is this idea that the world as we know it has ended. Anybody know the band REM from Georgia, big 80s band? It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. So these are those kind of people here, you know, that they're going to make it a party, basically. It's the end of the world, but I'm going to go hang out naked in some hot springs. There were families sheltered in cheap tent trailers, aging hippies in day-glow vans, Charles Manson lookalikes, meaning they had a lot of facial hair and a lot of hair in general, sleeping in rusted-out Studebakers that hadn't turned over since the Eisenhower was in the White House. A substantial number of those present were walking around buck naked. At the center of the camp, water from the geothermal well had piped into a pair of shallow steaming pools lined with rocks, shaded by palm trees. Oh my God, hot springs. So twice in these chapters that were assigned for today, Krakauer paints this picture of the far-out world that this recent college graduate has escaped into. Two real-world countercultures that exist in North America. And I will make a confession. I've visited one of the ones I'm going to show, and I visited a regional version of one of the other ones that I'm going to show. So I know a little bit about these subcultures, but these are very real. And I just, in a couple minutes on Google Images, oh my goodness, what you can find on the internet these days. And there's maybe a little out there for you all, but I was careful choosing not pictures that weren't too weird. But anyway, the one I'm going to show you first of all is the Rainbow Gatherings. And these were started in the early 1970s. And the Rainbow Gatherings were founded by hippies of the 60s hippie counterculture. And they wanted to have these festivals. They call them the Festival of Living Light. And they gather every July 4th in the National Forest. So we've talked about the different places these things can be. You know, they're not downtown Nashville. They choose a different national forest every summer, and they go and have a festival from July 1st to July 7th, and they camp. And then the purpose of it, the sensible purpose, is to pray for world peace. And so on July 4th, when most Americans are having barbecue or perhaps going to visit a fireworks display, they're having this circle where they hold hands, and sometimes there'll be like a few thousand people in the big circle, and they'll pray for world peace. And they would probably be pretty much characterized as hippies. And I'll show you just a couple of pictures of some of these hippies. These ones are all on horseback. And these ones are in circle. And this, I don't know if this is the big circle. Probably the big circle is even bigger than this. But this is the kind of thing you'll notice that they, we talked about this last week, comparing the hippies to the Native Americans. You notice the teepee up here and holding hands, and maybe in silence, or maybe they're doing a chant of some kind to honor their mother, the earth, and to pray for peace. Much more edgy and much more modern. Hippies, kind of old school, you know, at this point. Much more modern and much more edgy is the Burning Man festival that takes place in the desert in Nevada. It's not so much like the Slabs, though, where the Slabs are true refugees. You got to pay a lot of money to go to Burning Man, so what you basically have is professionals who want to get their freak on, you know, once a year. These are people that have jobs during the year and who can afford to go, but they want to go get crazy in the desert once a year. And so they build this giant man, okay? And then, at the end of the festival, they burn him down. And it's very, very crazy. And I just, again, you can on your own, if you want to see how crazy it is, you can just Google it and see people dressed up in crazy costumes, doing crazy stuff, living crazy with their big buses and such in the desert. And the thing that's most interesting about this subculture is that they create an artistic village at the Burning Man, and they actually have fundraising. The money that they get from people when they come is they create these art grants, and so they actually pay artists to build these gigantic sculptures. And so the entire desert landscape will be you know, covered in desert sculptures. Lots of really famous people, like rock stars and stuff, have gone to Burning Man. One of the guys that was really famous, that was just on American Idol, I think, the one that got in the big kissing incident, I don't know that guy. But anyway, so important people have gone there. It's kind of a crazy big deal in the desert every summer. One year recently, a vandal torched the man early. Like, he's supposed to be burned on a certain time. It's very ritualized and scheduled. And vandal torched the man early. And there's actually, you know, police and authorities are there. And this is a very official, you know, very, you know, allowed event. They pay, you know, the government. It's on government land, so they pay the government every year for the permission to host it in the way that they want to host it. So anyway, this guy was arrested and charged with a pretty hefty charge. I don't know what ended up happening to him, but he actually torched the man early. I think that's probably a good stopping place on the TAZ question. There's some things I want to get into in our last remaining time here from the text. Jesse, I think I'm gonna go ahead and kill this for.